Hello. Let me first say how wonderful it is to speak with you today. The Other Slavery Symposium presents a significant opportunity to generate discussion about a part of history too long underexamined and underreported. It also exemplifies the Smithsonian's ability to work across museums and disciplines to expand understanding about our world. My sincere thanks to the leadership and staffs of the Smithsonian Latino Center, the National Museum of the American Indian, and the National Museum of African American History and Culture for making this event possible. Thanks also to the project's advisors, including Dr. Philip Deloria of the American Indian Museum's Board of Trustees, whose wisdom and guidance were crucial in putting together this symposium. My career as a historian and as a museum professional has been devoted to two goals: to tell the unvarnished truth about our history and to better understand the various dimensions of race that have always been central to the American experience. As someone whose focus has largely been on the African American history, I wasn't as familiar with Indian slavery as I was with the African slave trade. The work of Dr. Andres Resendez helped expand my knowledge. His Bancroft winning book, The Other Slavery, The Uncovered Story of Indian Enslavement in America, was the inspiration for this symposium, and he graciously agreed to write the essay that provides the context for this important discussion. So thank you so much, Dr. Resendez. When considering these remarks, I thought of Frederick Douglass's autobiography, My Bondage and Freedom. He captured in detail what it was like to be enslaved, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. Living in bondage was an all consuming condition. Douglass wrote about how, during his enslavement, he worked to retain his independence of mind, even when his body was at the mercy of someone else. Doing so, and writing about his experience, allowed him to control his own narrative. He was defying his captors, showing his resilience, and displaying the innate desire for freedom that lives in the human spirit. This symposium is an important component of our broad institution wide initiative, Our Shared Future, Reckoning with Our Racial Past. The roots and legacy of racial inequity in this country are so complex that we want to look at it through as many lenses as possible. The Other Slavery Symposium gives us the chance to bring together some of the best scholars in the country to help give voice to those who have been silenced for so long. Importantly, as a part of the symposium, we will also hear first voice from members of indigenous communities from New Mexico, Arizona, and California who can powerfully testify to the legacy of enslavement and exploitation. Not only will the poignant and powerful stories of Indian slavery give us a glimpse into the impact it has on those directly affected, they will explain how this practice altered the course of history. And because it was illegal, unlike the African slave trade, we can gain insight into slavery that still exists around the world today, relying on coercion, debts, and the threats of violence. As Dr. Resendez notes in his essay, quote, only by contemplating this longer trajectory can we gain a measure of the breathtaking dynamism and staying power of this type of slavery and the tremendous difficulties of ending it. Many times, as I worked on the development of the National Museum of the African American History and Culture, people would ask why we had to make slavery central to the museum or even talk about it at all. After we opened, people would comment on the design of the museum that first directed them to the section on the African slave trade. And they would say to me, can't we just skip to the parts we want to see? The answer, of course, is that African slavery is integral to the African American story and thus the American story. The other answer is that we shouldn't merely skip over parts of our history we don't like. Slavery is an indelible part of the nation's past. We can't erase Jim Crow or Japanese internment camps or the Trail of Tears, but we can tell the truth about these events, give as much insight into them as we can, and use them to contextualize our presence and our ability to understand ourselves. That ability is needed now more than ever. That's because the effect to whitewash slavery, an ongoing project that ebbs and flows, has been seemingly intensified lately. A museum in Texas was pressured to cancel the discussion of a book that counters myths about the Alamo. Parents in Tennessee recently protested the teaching of a book about Ruby Bridges, the 6-year-old girl who was the first to desegregate a Louisiana school in 1960. And cable news pundits have asserted in recent months that European settlers, quote, birthed the nation from nothing, and that this nation wasn't stolen from indigenous people, but won on the battlefield. Irrespective of people who work to rewrite history or obscure the truth, it's the responsibility of cultural institutions to be honest explorers and explainers. Unfortunately, there will always be those who criticize efforts like this, who accuse us of being political or biased. But I would argue that not only is it our professional obligation to seek the untarnished truth, it is our moral obligation as well. Symposia like the other slavery, exhibitions like Americans at the American Indian Museum, and new museums like the National Museum of the American Latino and the American Women's History Museum can accurately reflect who we are, where we've been, and where we're going as a nation. Some of the most compelling accounts found in our museums are about people not nearly as accomplished or well known as Frederick Douglass. Just average people trying their best to live their lives. Recording these stories for posterity and bringing them to life for students, scholars, and the public is one of our most important jobs as chronicles of the past. Together, their threads weave the American tapestry. I think about the visceral power of the cabin in the African American Museum that was built in the 1850s to house enslaved people on Edisto Island, South Carolina. Before coming to the museum, it stood in its original spot, an enduring symbol of a people resilient and resolute. This humble structure, typical of many slave cabins, was additionally built with a single door to keep the occupants pinned in. After emancipation, many formerly enslaved people stayed on as sharecroppers, working the same land, living in the same cabins. But they began to transform these spaces into something more. The family that lived in the Edisto Island cabin painted it, added an interior wall to divide it into 2 rooms. Crucially, they added another door. That second door was freedom made real. The power of autonomy, the ability to redefine the space of their own, and the hope of a brighter future. As a country, we cannot fully understand our history, nor can we really appreciate freedom without understanding how dependent we were on slavery. And we cannot fully understand slavery without understanding the enslavement of indigenous people. I commend you for joining us for this event that will help foster a greater understanding of Indian slavery and the lasting impact it has had on Native peoples and on the country. I hope you take advantage of this opportunity to form collaborations, explore new avenues of research, and inspire new ways to educate the public. If we are to heal and make amends for the lasting damage done by this shameful practice, if the nation is to live up to its ideals, we must first acknowledge the sins of the past. It is a long, arduous process, but I think this symposium is a great start. So thank you. Hope you have a productive and inspiring few days, and I look forward to the ideas that will emerge from this event. Thank you.